Gina DeLuca here. Alright, today I'm going to be doing a moving straight pour with one of my favorite color combinations. I have here Amsterdam Turquoise Green. I have DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in copper. Tucker, get down. Get. And I have the DecoArt Americana Decor in 24 karat gold. These colors together, they're always magical. Whatever happens, it's really difficult to go wrong. So I'm just going to have some fun with this. You know, still trying to get my mojo back. I feel like it's coming. It's getting there. I made some really cool watercolor paint with this little piggy pigment and some of the stuck-up pigs. So I'm going to be playing around with those probably when I finish this, trying to get back into creative mode. Sometimes you just got to push through it. Just do it until the juices flow again. So that's what's happening. These paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. And then I've added water until I get the consistency that I'm looking for, which is, this is a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears quickly. It's making a nice, thin, even stream off of my stick. If it's getting thin and thick and thin and thick again, your consistency is inconsistent and you need to do some more mixing. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute. But if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you the exact paint, brand, color, consistency, the recipe, the technique, of course, all the things that I can't fit onto a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for this technique. Here at the bottom you have the color palette that was used in this painting, and these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors, mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is put some paint in my cup. I'm going to do about 2 ounces in here. And I'm going to lay down my base coat. You'll notice I've already covered my sides. The reason that I do that is because I do mix my paints pretty thin, and I am using Floetrol. That combination does not give you the greatest coverage on the sides of the canvas, and the canvas can show through. So this eliminates that happening and me having to go back in and touch it up afterwards. This just makes it so much easier. I would rather just take the 2 minutes to cover it ahead of time than to try to fix it later on, especially if I'm using custom blended colors, which I often do. And the reason that we lay down a base coat is because we want the paints to slide around evenly and easily on our canvas. Something has to stick to the canvas first. And if it is not your base coat, it is going to be your poured paint. And you will have the puddle rolling over itself. The center of the puddle will roll over the edges, and sometimes you get some really cool stuff happening on the edges. Which is why I use a color for my base coat that is going to be in my painting. That gives me the option for having negative space, but also if I wind up with some bubbles in my base coat, I do pop them, but I cannot pop all of them. That is just how it is. And if I have bubbles in my base coat and they come up through my pour, if this were a white background, I would wind up with tiny little white cells in my painting, and they don't really belong there because there's no white in my painting. Again, that just falls in the troubleshoot before there's trouble category. All right, my base coat is down. Let's put some paint in a cup. I have checked my paint for consistency. Always check the consistency before adding to your cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. Going to pour from up high, allowing this to sink and churn. If that is not a motion you are comfortable with, you can always practice with water in your sink. I was a bartender at one point, so I kind of learned how to do that. All right, again, pouring from up high, allowing the sinking and the churning. So what happens, these DecoArt paints are cell makers in a straight pour because they dry matte. The Amsterdam paints will dry glossy, and the mixture of the glossy and matte paints together create beautiful cells because the matte paints have a hydrophobic effect. All right, going to add a significant amount. I'm going to leave just a little bit in the cup in case I need it for my base coat. And the reason I covered all those paints is I want to have I want some of my background to stay. So I'm not using as much of the DecoArt paints as I might normally because I want some of the background to show up and not get swallowed by the DecoArt paints. Will that happen? I don't know. They're pretty strong cell makers. We'll find out. Let's pop the bubbles. Get old Bernie 2 times out. He never lights the first try. All right, let's make a mess, shall we? I'm going to just do a moving straight pour. I'm going to come down the center and I'm going to come back up the center, kind of making some wiggles just to get some kind of a pattern going here. Did these little swirlies in the last one and some cool things happened, so let's see what that does. And if I hate anything, I can always tilt it off. So I am popping the bubbles in the underlying layers, which is going to bring some of the paint with it. That's why we use a base coat that is the same color as something that's in our painting. But you'll see as these little tiny cells pop up, little tiny bubbles pop up, it's going to bring some paint with it, and those cells are going to spread out. They have a hydrophobic effect. They are going to push that other paint away. This does create a lot of bubbles. pouring in this fashion. But for this particular technique, that's kind of a good thing because we want these cells to pop up. We want them to grow before we stretch. That's how we get those nice big juicy cells, maximizing their growth potential. Let's see. I mean, regardless of what happens, obviously I've got some stuff going on here in the center. There are already cells happening, but after I stretch, more cells will pop up. I call those pop-up cells because they pop up after the stretch. These will become boulder cells. When these stretch out, they will have a very 3D effect because these paints have blended together. And so it gives a very 3D look to them. This is a very, very important part of the straight pour, letting your paint puddle percolate. I know it is really hard to be patient. At this point, you want to tilt it, you want to see what you're going to get. But the more patient you are, the more cells will pop up before you tilt, and the bigger your cells will be after you tilt if you are patient. The bigger they're allowed to get before you stretch, the bigger they will be after you stretch. So patience is absolutely a virtue when it comes to a straight pour. All right, give it another pop of the bubbles. So you can see all of those little tiny bubbles that came up that brought the paint with it. Now they're cells. They weren't there before. And there go the cats chasing each other. All right. Well, I think we have enough going on here. I can give this a tilt. Let's see. I think I will, oh, actually, before I do that, I am going to touch up my sides because they can set up as it sits and the paint will not glide over the edge as smoothly if you have a dry spot on your sides or anywhere on your canvas, including your sides. So it's always good just to make sure it's good and juiced up. Again, troubleshooting before there's trouble. Anything that looks like it might be drying up on you, and you'll be able to tell. Actually, down here is looking a little thin, so I will just use some of my leftover base coat. All right, all good, everything looking even. Probably use a little bit right there. Can't hurt. All right. Let's give her a stretch. And I'm going to bring the weight of the paint back to center before I change directions. I find that that helps me to keep my composition more intact, to keep my cells from losing their shape too much. When you're working on an oblong piece like this, with one pour cup, it is going to affect your cells, the shape of your cells. It is going to get pretty stretched. Now see, if I wanted to just leave this like this, it would be a lot of paint left on my canvas. But because I used a base coat that is a color that is in my painting, I could just leave this like this and call it a day. Pray it didn't crack because it is a lot of paint. Okay. Again, bringing the weight of the paint back to center. Ooh, almost. You'll know where the weight of your paint is by where it is moving the fastest. That is the easiest way to tell. Okay. And we did lose a lot of the cells that were on the, not in the center of the puddle. That's okay. More will pop up for sure. But allowing those cells to develop, you're also allowing what's happened in the center to develop. And these colors are magical together. The cats are fighting like literally between my feet right now. You guys, you have a whole house. You have 3 floors. Right here? Really? Right in front of my salad? Yeah, that's right. Go upstairs and fight. Silly cats. Okay. I'm just going to adjust the weight of the paint a little bit. All right. I like what is happening here. I'm going to let this sit. More cells will develop. I am not going to torch this. If this is all that happens, I would be happy. I know more cells are going to pop up. It is just the nature of these paints. But if I torch it, I am encouraging that. And I'm not trying to encourage that. I'm just going to let it happen naturally. One of the nice things about using Floetrol as opposed to a glossier pouring medium like Golden or Liquitex, the purpose of Floetrol originally is it is a work time extender, and it also eliminates brush strokes. So house painters use it. It helps to make it sprayable for those who use the sprays, but they also add it when they're using the rollers because it eliminates the roller marks. But what it also does is it's a self-leveling medium. So the reason that it gets rid of the brush strokes is because it is self-leveling, and it will smooth out, and I will not get pits. Even if there are bubbles in this paint, it won't pit like it would if I were using Golden or Liquitex or some other glossier pouring medium. So I don't have to worry about bubbles, popping all the bubbles before, you know, I let her do what she's going to do. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let her work her magic while I'm not looking, and I will bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. This should not be changing anymore. The sides have already started to set up. Very happy that I was able to maintain some of my background color. And really happy with the blending in the cells. This is a very blingy piece. And it's looking more sky blue on my screen here, but it is more of a teal turquoise, more green in there. If I pull out, I don't know why this camera has a hard time with anything with blues in it. It gets weird, but there it is. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. Help me stay, or get back into the algorithm, I should say. And check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. Greatly appreciate it. You will find the links to my affiliates, DecoArt being one of them. Get your hands on some of these awesome cell making paints. You'll also find links to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you'll find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there, post your masterpieces, ask your questions, get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. And do stay tuned for info about an upcoming auction that will be happening probably within the next month. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for that. All right, that is it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.